When we were finally able to come out of our cubbies, I met Brienne. Brienne had brown hair, big green eyes. Her skin was tan from living in San Diego all of her life. She had explained to me about the scars on her arms and that they were from shooting up heroin. After coming out of the cubby that was 3 down from mine, she went down to the day room and she borrowed a razor from the deputy and shaved the left side of her hair. And I just felt she was going to be very cocky from that point on. So I sat next to Brienne while I was watching TV, and she looked down at my armband and said, "Well, at least you'll be out of here by your birthday. That'll be nice." I didn't know when the hell I was getting out. I just replied, "Yeah." And it was March. My birthday was in April. So anyway, Brienne told me a little bit more about her life and what she was doing in jail. And she said, "I haven't always been like this." She said, "I have a degree. I've traveled the world." She said, "I have a daughter that my parents are having to raise." She said, "I want to get better. I don't know where to start." She said, "I can't stop getting high." She said, "I'm in here because I wanted to feed people that I was living on the streets with." And she said, we were so hungry. And she said, "I went into a store and I stole enough food to share somehow." She got a grand theft charge. And so that one Hispanic woman that just kept walking by, smiling, flirting, she looked at Brienne and she said, "Don't you just love that accent?" And she said, "Hell yeah, girl. It's sexy as fuck." Well, I started getting a little nervous because I didn't want any sexual attention on me, especially, while I was in jail. So I just kept praying, "God, please protect me." I prayed that numerous times. And I was at my desk one evening reading my Bible, crying, praying to be freed. And Brienne walked into my cubby, which was against the rules. And you've already heard what happened earlier in my story. And she handed me a small prayer that she had pulled out of a prayer book, like it ripped the page out. And it was the exact words that I needed at the right time. And I said, this is more of no matter the person and where they are on their journey, God can and will use them to give you a message. So I cried and cried, and that was just becoming a normal reaction from me being in jail. Later that evening, I was laying on my cot, and, I was just being grateful for the message. I felt very spiritual in that moment, and it was day room time. I knew it'd be about to end, and I just wanted to lay there away from all the women. And before I knew what was going on, Brienne jumped on top of me and was trying to snuggle. And my immediate thoughts were about those 2 women who were caught in each other's space earlier in the week. And so I just started screaming, "Get up, get off of me." And she said, "Damn, girl, you scared?" And I said, "Hell yeah, I'm scared. I knew I wouldn't survive another week in isolation there." I calmed myself down enough to look at that deputy like nothing had happened. And when she came up to check armbands. The next morning, I was reading my Bible, and this was probably one of the most hopeful parts of my story at this time. And it was in the scripture that says, "Suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him up and said, 'Quick, get up.' And the chains fell off Peter's wrist. 'Get dressed, put on your sandals,' said the angel, and Peter did so. And the angel told him, 'Wrap your cloak around you and follow me.' Peter followed him out, but was unaware what the angel was doing. He thought he was seeing some kind of vision, and then they passed through the first and second guards and then came to an iron gate that led out to the city, which opened for him by itself. And when they had gone outside and walked the length of 1 block, the angel suddenly left him. And then Peter came to himself and said, 'Now I know for sure the Lord has sent his angel to rescue me from Herod's grasp and from everything the Jewish people were anticipating. It was mid-morning, and I knew that day room time was not going to happen. And we were told that we were on lockdown. There was never the permission to leave our cubbies and go out in the day room. So I rested on my cot, looking up at the ceiling, thinking about my dad and my sister, and the morning call that I didn't get to make to them. There was a door. If you went out of my cubby and to the left, that's where the restroom was for the second tier. And then there was like a door. And all of a sudden, this door swung open, and these male guards were coming in, and I could almost feel the force where I was laying, because they came in so chaotic and they were screaming, out of your cells now, up and out. Don't fucking touch anything. I mean, my heart was racing. I knew nothing, but I did as I was commanded. Up against the rail now, do not talk. I walked over to the rail. I saw numerous deputies screaming and patting down inmates. I turned to Linton and I asked her, I said, "What is this?" She said, "It's a raid." She said, "Someone is being suspected of drugs." And then I heard, line up, follow the deputies outside. We walked and walked and walked down this path through different dorm areas, and then we entered a dorm that was empty. And it looked the same way that the first dorm, the holding cell that I was in when I got there, looked. And they had us go outside of the dorm, and it was like a chain fence area. I mean, it was sealed, but it was all chain fence. And there was a toilet and a payphone outside in this area. And I watched this short girl. She went to the toilet, and some of the other women were surrounding her. And she looked like she was trying to pee. And the drugs were hid in her underwear. And they were helping her flush the drugs down the toilet before the strip search. I was still responding to the initial traumatic feeling of going from resting into being yelled at. And one of the deputies opened the door and picked 3 inmates to follow her. I could not see what was happening after they got back in the dorm. Eventually, it was my turn. I was motioned to go inside the shower. That was the shower area. And I had to go into the shower stall. And I was motioned to strip down naked again. Just like in booking, the same process. Run your fingers through your hair, behind your ears, open your mouth, and run your fingers through your gums. It was dark and it was cold. And not only inside of that shower stall, but the inside of my soul that was being fragmented with its own pain from sexual assault. I was being stripped naked and made to do things with my physical body that exposed my breast and my genitalia. How the fuck is this legal? Like how? Hold up your breast, turn around, bend over, spread your ass, spread your vagina, and cough. I wanted to throw up the shame and embarrassment that was saturating in the inside of my stomach like spoiled milk. Now get your clothes back on and step outside until the other deputy motions for you. The other deputy motioned for me to go in a room and crunch up with over 30 other inmates. It looked like it was used as a small library. There was a lot of bookshelves with different books, and some inmates were pulling some of the books off the shelves and just thumbing through them to have something to do. Probably a way to get their mind out of the experience that just happened with the strip down. And there was this girl, Latrice, and she just starts talking about all the bullshit we just went through. And she was like, "I hope these bitches enjoyed looking at my hairy ass this morning. I hope they had to see some shit hanging down." I knew beneath that humor it was a coping mechanism. I mean, it was what I was feeling too. You know, like there's all this pain, like what do you do with it? And you're angry and you want them to have done to them what they just did to you. Or at least have some sort of punishment for it. So the door opened and the last few inmates came in. And the deputy looked around at all of us and then yelled, "Don't you touch any of those fucking books, bitches." And so we walked the long path back to our regular dorm and went inside the cubby. My mattress had been flipped over. My food was thrown across the bed and all over the floor. Everything in my space had been destroyed. My books on the nightstand were scattered. I felt violated and unsafe. And in the midst of all that emotion, I had come home to a place that, come back to a place that was not my home. And as I finished writing this piece of this scene from jail, I sat at the table in the apartment building that I was living in at the time, and I was feeling cold and experiencing the release of tears running down my face and dropping onto that wooden table. And my thoughts were, how could America allow such harsh and inhumane treatment? And why wasn't anything being done about cruel and unusual punishment? Why are we having to go through this? Why are women having to be sexually traumatized for petty crimes or for any crime? Men too. I've never been into a men's prison or jail. I'm speaking for women. And I'm sorry for the men, and I hope that there's some men that are watching this who will speak out on behalf of men's prisons and jails and what they've experienced. But this is not right. To continue to re-traumatize our childhoods because of a petty crime or because you're being accused of something you didn't do. And if you have committed a crime, there needs to be some way to reform and not re-traumatize. And I'm sorry, again, from the bottom of my heart, for any human that's ever had to go through this. But I hope you can be brave, and I hope you can find your story and not carry the shame and the embarrassment, because there's nothing to be ashamed of and there's nothing to be embarrassed of.